I am going to start with one question for each of the panelists, and then I'm going to open it up to all of you. So start thinking about the questions you're going to ask while I put one short question to each of the two. I'm going to start with Scott to keep his thread going, and then I'll move to Billie-Jo.
Okay.
So one of the things that is a change afoot, even as people are ramping up doing fecal transplantation, is that there are companies developing defined communities of naturally occurring gut bacteria. So I want to hear your thoughts on how the regulatory paradigm is shaping up for that, and even your thoughts ultimately on engineered bacteria against the backdrop of, at the beginning of the biologics era, it was just naturally occurring proteins, but look at what we have now. We have incredibly, marvelously engineered and quite safe biologics. And so anticipating a move in that direction, how are you thinking about keeping the regulatory paradigm caught up with the products?
So in one sense, it doesn't change. We receive IND applications, we review them for safety, product characterization, and so forth. So in that sense, we will look at FMT in the same way. I take it you're talking about a consortium
Yes.
of bacteria, defined or undefined,
Right.
but certainly more defined when compared to FMT.
That's right.
And I think it doesn't change that much. We're certainly, I won't say happier, I don't want to put any spin on it, but it's great to have a product that you can characterize a little bit better.
Okay.
But I think we've always been prepared for the possibility. We've been expecting that we will move to more defined products as we learn more, but there's always also been the possibility that that may not come that easily.
Yep.
And we may be using FMT for quite a while, and even as new defined products come online, it may be that there's still some value in the, the homemade stuff that has everything. So I think it's too early to say that at this point. That was one question.
And then the engineered organisms.
Yeah, I left out an extremely important part, and that is I have to say that anything that I say is my opinion, it does not necessarily represent. I can't believe I missed that. But
everything you said before that is the opinion of FDA. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Somebody somewhere is laughing right now. To my mind, there's nothing per se about a genetically modified organism, engineered I should say, that makes it different. Everything is on a case-by-case basis. Certainly there are going to be different aspects depending on the nature of the engineering that will possibly raise safety concerns. But we'll take it as it comes. And I think we're open-minded about whatever people want to propose.
Great, fantastic. And then one question for Billie-Jo, and then I'll ask people with questions to line up. My question for you is almost a silly one, which is that I'm trying to think about, for fecal transplantation, the donors. If I donate blood, I'm given a sticker and a cookie and a pat on the back, and I feel good about myself. But if I donate feces, then what it makes me think of is the fact that the alternative is using a drug that might not be quite as effective and is actually quite costly. So the question for you is, who owns the feces, and should donors be compensated more, and how do I think about this?
So I think that's a great question. I think there is a paper out there, which is a fantastic paper by Kieran O'Doherty's group out of Guelph called Who Owns Your Poop? I'm not sure how many of you have come across this, but they've asked that question, and around that comes the notion of how frequently the microbiota itself changes, so whether or not you can in fact own that. And the fact that it's framed as waste. So not only does the fact that it's framed as waste sort of ask the question as to whether or not you can, in some communities or some cultures, derive a therapeutic benefit from it, because people may in fact say, I don't want that because it's actually waste, and I don't know why you're trying to give me some kind of beneficial therapeutic through it. But for the people who are donating, I think we don't know yet. We need to have those conversations, and the empirical data needs to be generated to determine how comfortable people are with handing over that kind of waste and it suddenly becoming something that's held in databases and documented. And it again depends on how strongly it's associated with medical information and personal identifying factors as well.
Over to questions. Who's got a question? And while you're standing up to ask questions, I'll ask about the privacy issue. How much information do you think it's ultimately going to be possible to learn from a fecal sample, and will that change the nature of public restrooms?
So I'm not sure. I mean, I guess it depends on the data. The evidence base isn't there yet. There is some discussion about whether or not a fingerprint does exist for your microbiome that you can leave behind, and then subsequently someone else could, with ill intentions, pick it up and use it for some sort of negative effect. I think that for the most part we've found historically that the use of specimens doesn't seem to really create that or necessitate that kind of concern. So we can rely on the governance mechanisms that are in place to actually protect people who provide those. And will people put the energy into picking up from the bathroom? Probably not.